You always know it's January in Birmingham, Alabama when you're driving around downtown and you see billboards off of the Red Mountain Expressway advertising the coming again of the Shenyun dance troupe down there at the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center complex. And this has been a very usual thing for years that in February, well, maybe not so much anymore, but usually in February, you used to get two things. You would get the circus, the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, and you get Shenyun, right? For about the last decade or so. I wasn't expecting them to come this year because they've recently, well, not so recently. This is a bit old news, but the scandal's been stirred up again that they're a cult. They're kind of a cult. I actually think they very much are a cult, I believe. I had heard ramblings about this not too long ago, maybe sometime last year or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but that these it's a group of performers. It's a dance troupe, and they come on stage and they perform like traditionalistic Chinese dancing. And looking at the Shenyun Wikipedia page, the group was sort of founded in order to revive Chinese traditions and culture that existed before the Communist Party sort of seized the identity of China, right? So that sounds good enough. And it seems like it was founded in 2006 by Chinese expatriate adherents of Falun Gong, who's a guy, and seems to be like the cult of personality behind this whole thing. It's based at the Dragon Springs compound in Deer Park, New York. Like compound, that's another indicator that we're in Jim Jones NXIVM territory. And near where the group's leader, Li Hongzai, and his followers reside. Okay, so maybe he's the cult of personality. Oh. Yeah, okay, Falun Gong is the group. Okay, sorry. See, I'm very uneducated on this, so maybe you could... shine a light on this. But so Falun Gong adherents pay to rent the performance venue, promote the show, and sell tickets, which, I mean, that sounds a little odd that you're having to pay to perform, but that's also what a lot of performers do, right? They buy stage time, anywhere from comedians at open mic nights to, strippers, I suppose. And, it's Shenyun is a dance troupe. It's only part of this larger Falun Gong collective. There's also a far-right media outlet called the Epoch Times. There's other things that they do. So it's not just the only one. But they were banned from China essentially in 2006, and they came here. They were denounced by the Chinese government for promoting sectarian doctrines. Which sounds pretty good, but they also go beyond it. They denounce views on evolution and atheism. And it certainly seems a little innocuous, the Shenyun dance troupe, that it's just very joyous and happy. I've seen commercials on the morning news. They're dancing around up there, and it seems to enliven a lot of people, and almost seems to be taking the place of, say, something like Riverdance or Lord of the Dance, like that Irish Celtic music that was so popular in the 1990s. Like, I guess this is the new thing, right? For the 2020s, I suppose. But I think it is indeed a part of a cult. Cult members, dance members. I'm not saying that they're all part of the cult, but maybe they just want to dance, but this is just kind of the crazy stuff they have to go along with. But, they've been, emotionally abused, apparently, by the people running the show. They've been told that if they fail in performance up on stage, then that's, they're not only failing the audience, but they're also damning them to hell. Like if the people in the audience see a bad show, that means that their souls are lost or something like that. That's some bizarre stuff for just a media company or an entertainment company, I suppose. This group Falun Gong They meld, it says, traditional Taoist principles with occasionally bizarre pronouncements from its Chinese-born founder and leader, Li Hongzhi. Among other pronouncements, Li has claimed that aliens started invading human minds in the beginning of the 20th century, leading to mass corruption and the invention of computers. He's also denounced feminism and homosexuality and claimed he can walk through walls and levitate. But the central tenet of the group's wide-ranging belief system is its fierce opposition to communism. So I don't know, maybe that's why they get along so well in America, and maybe why they keep coming back down here to the South, because we also hate communism. We don't like that very much, and we're also deeply religious down here, and sort of like a lot of that stuff. But I don't know, maybe that's why we sort of give them a pass down here every February, and why I see the billboards up all over the place, right? I don't know. Down there at the BJCC, where they have events, and seem to always have these big events return every February. It's just an automatic thing. You just know they're going to be down there. As I said, the circus was down there for years, and I am old enough to remember. I'm sure they stopped doing it at some point in the early 90s, but I still am old enough to actually remember when the circus would come to town. It was a big deal. There was, I do remember, maybe I'm just forming this memory, I don't know, for movies or whatever, but I do remember a parade, actually like a circus parade coming through town. I do remember that. And the circus is down there at the BJCC. I also learned that about the idea of an audience plant, because the circus would always pick somebody as a volunteer, and that volunteer would then get up on the trapeze and do all these amazing things. And it would seem like just this yuckle in the audience as soon as she stepped her skinny 5'4" frame into that 3-ring circus there. The magic of the circus would just lift her into the stratosphere and the heights of the auditorium. And I was absolutely amazed by that. I wanted to do that too, and I was so sad that he didn't pick me, that ringmaster. And I guess that's sort of like a little bit of me died that night, because she was part of it. She was a plant. Well, yeah, that BJCC every February we'd also go until a certain time, about 6 years old or so. It was always understood that we would go to like the monster truck rally, and the tractor haul, and go down there and just see the Bigfoot and all these huge old monster trucks run over these tiny little feeble cars, these helpless little cars, and just park them right there in the middle of the place, and these things would just rev over them. And, it was one of these things that just growing up here in Alabama, and at the time I was living sort of in the country, and that was like all you needed for entertainment was just big trucks running over little trucks or whatever. And I was so excited. Everybody at school was like really excited about going to this monster truck thing. So we all went, for several years, and I would go with my dad, and all the other dads would come, and they would be sitting on one row and the kids would be sitting on another, and we would just be looking at it. And disappointed. I remember a lot of disappointment, because pretty much for the first hour it was just like the tractor haul. I don't know, where they wouldn't even bring out the monster trucks, but then they did. And all the kids got really excited. I didn't think there was anything that special to it. That's when I realized, like, maybe just like, I don't know, maybe it's like I'm adopted. I was born in the wrong state with the wrong mind. I don't know. I don't find any of that interesting at all. I still don't. And there's still adults my age, right, who when the monster truck, I don't know. I don't even know if they've had one of those things. Maybe they do. Maybe I see them. Like, maybe they still have them. I would never know. It happens like 2 miles down the street from me. I would never know when those things happen. Like, they have gun shows here. I don't know. I see him sometimes on billboards right next to the advertisements for the Shin Yun cult dance troupe. You know. Yeah, but speaking of cult of personality, this is the Midnight Citizen Show. Welcome so much to the show. Welcome so much. Thank you so much. I'm just getting into it. I'm your host, Mike Booty, and here in the studio on a Friday night, and hope your January is wrapping up nicely. And yeah, just I guess before I go any further, I suppose it is important to acknowledge the news and acknowledge what's going on in the world a little bit, right? That there was, and I did say something in my vlog this week, right when it happened. So I did a vlog this week that will be up on Monday. It may be up as you're listening to this right now if you're interested. Woke up the other morning and did not know anything at all, any news at all. I just saw it on TV while I was getting ready. The helicopter, military helicopter that crashed into that plane that was coming out of I think, was it Kansas City? See, this is like the scant facts that I know. Going into Reagan Airport there in Washington D.C. and all something like 67 people involved in the crash were killed, which is absolutely terrible. Where was that plane coming out of? Stop screaming. Okay, I'm looking it up. Hang on just a second. Yeah, it's coming out of Wichita, Kansas. I knew it was somewhere there in the middle of the country. Yeah, the people who are on board included like an ice skating team, and it's just absolutely like such a terrible tragedy that happened there. So I do, and of course, you know, the president that we've got now, Donald Trump, he's been in the office for 2 weeks now, and he's running the country like he's a teenager who just took his first Adderall. I don't know what's going on with this guy. You know, it's like I never really like to be very political on anything that I do at all, but this guy like just wasted no time in making this tragedy all about himself and his agenda, and just, you know, got on there talking about, you know, saying that it's DEI, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion practices are to blame for the accident. And just, I mean, like, is there any end to this guy's like narcissism? It just astonishes me. And it's like it had that kind of I'm just going to call it a jest, because I don't think that there's any part of this guy who really means what he's saying at all. I really think that he just is considering it all as like just a big joke. And he wants to be lampooned also. Like if he sees himself being like portrayed on Saturday Night Live or being made fun of by late night comedians, I think he likes that. He wants that. He wants a world where everybody's talking about him all the time, right? So I'm just going to call it a jest. I'm just going to call him saying things just so, because he knows that people are just going to can't help themselves from talking about it, right? And yeah, he says these things with that knowledge firmly in mind, I think. And he's just a jerk. He's a jerk personality. And that's how he made his bones, right? When he lost all of his money the first time, and he started being a celebrity and just going on like Howard Stern and just becoming part of the culture, learning that there's more money to be made, right, in that game than there is just actually running a legitimate business. He figured out that all I got to do is say like the most insane thing I can possibly think of. I mean, that's the exact same thing. Did you see that movie Private Parts, that Howard Stern biopic? That's exactly what Howard Stern says in the movie. All I got to do is get on the radio and say the most insane things I can think of, and people love it because we're such a button-down country that you know, we love that kind of stuff, right? So that's all he had to do. So I don't know, man. You know, just I got to tell you, like for now, like seriously, I was talking to you know, I was talking to somebody I work with the other day who was just ranting about it and just getting upset at everything he did. It was too much. I couldn't keep up with everything, but she was particularly incensed at, you know, pausing federal grant money and all that. And so she was going off on that. And I just said, like, I know that this seems maybe immoral or maybe unethical or something, but, you know, to criticize a guy and not read the news, but I can't read the news anymore. It's just too insane. It's too insane. I can't believe anything that I'm reading anymore. I told her, like, New York Times is honestly, it's like just for Wordle now, right? It's just for Wordle. I can't do anything else with New York Times but play Wordle, but, you know. But then I had to walk that back. I was like, unfortunately, Trump is like a five-letter word, so... Yeah, and just seeing, I did see this did catch my eye a little bit this week, that yeah, RFK Jr., right, the son of Robert F. Kennedy Sr., I suppose, right, who was sadly shot in that hotel kitchen in California all those years ago, ran for president, didn't win, so obviously a deal was made because now he's been nominated and I suppose been confirmed by Congress as the next Health and Human Services Secretary under Donald Trump. Right. So he you know, went before Congress this week and you know, was questioned by the various senators and everything, and of course his wife, you know, Cheryl Hines, the actress, is sitting right behind him there. And it's a bizarre thing that's happening because it's just a very weird meta moment that tells you that we're in an odd time. Like, all times I think are kind of odd. Like, every generation is interesting to look at. It's just sometimes you have to look a little bit harder. Okay. And it's just one of those worlds where, like, every news cycle produces some kind of surreal, like, meta moment. That's just like, am I living like in a TV world, or where am I living right now? So, you know, we got RFK is here being questioned by Bernie Sanders with Cheryl Hines sitting behind him. And of course, Cheryl Hines is an actress. There she is right there, who played Larry David's wife for years on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And when, you know, of course, like, Larry David broke up with his real wife, Lori David, that's when he also broke up with Cheryl Hines on the show, playing his wife. So, yeah, here's Bernie Sanders.
Mr. Chairman, I asked to put into the record 16 studies done by scientists and doctors all over the world saying that vaccines do not cause autism. Are you happy with that objection?
Oh, look, it's the IOM assessment of those 16 studies, Senator. The IOM has assessed them. But listen,
let me get to don't have a lot of time. I apologize. I'm happy to talk to you at another time. Don't have a lot of time. Let's talk about COVID.
Oh, boy.
And I just want...
you know, it's just so strange because, of course, right, like... Bernie Sanders was lampooned by Larry David on Saturday Night Live years ago. And Bernie Sanders took the poking in good faith, and he said, I have no problem with Larry David playing me. I am Larry David, right? Which is... The appeal has always been the appeal of Bernie Sanders, especially, I think, among young people, is just being like this crotchety, jerky grandpa who doesn't care about right, mincing his words and just being always correct in the language that he uses. I don't want to say politically correct, but you know what I mean. And he's almost like the sort of Trump for, I suppose, the left, right? Because he is an independent. And he's espoused, obviously, socialist tendencies before. And, but yeah, he's just this crotchety guy who just doesn't really seem to have time for anybody. I remember him one time just being interviewed on NPR, and it was a very friendly interview, but he just, like, announced that he's getting up and leaving. He didn't even wait for the music or anything. I heard that. That was so funny, right? I just think, you know, the fact that Larry David played him is obviously they have like somewhat of a physical resemblance. They're both kind of like old men. They've both got receding, or I guess they are both bald, and they both wear glasses, and they both seem to just not really, you know, give a shit. And so Larry David played him, and now it's like we're in this weird meta moment where Cheryl Hines is watching her like real husband and her fake husband go back and forth over COVID.
We made some progress under the Biden administration of negotiating prescription drug prices with pharma. First time that's ever happened. Now, yesterday you told me that the White House was going to issue something affirming their support for continuing those Medicare negotiations. Turned out not to be quite accurate. They came up with some bland statement, could have been written by pharma. Very specific questions. Do you believe and will you insist that Medicare continue to negotiate prices with the pharmaceutical industry so we can substantially lower prescription drug costs in America?
President Trump has made it very clear to me that he wants to negotiate.
Negotiate is a big word, Bobby. It's a big word.
It's the word you just used, Senator.
Yeah, but no, I use defend a particular law. Will you defend the law in the Inflation Reduction Act, which already is negotiating prescription drug prices?
President Trump wants us to negotiate drug prices. He wants to lower drug prices.
So you're not telling me that you will defend the law that
yeah, it's hard to like lampoon Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because, you know, just the way he's so ripe for parody, but you can't do it because it's a debilitating physical condition that affects the way he speaks and everything. So that's why, I don't know, have they? I don't know. I don't watch Saturday Night Live anymore. Maybe they have.
Chairman Cassidy. President Trump and Mr. Kennedy are quite right when they say that our system is broken. They're right. Our economic system today is broken. 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Wages have been stagnant for American workers for 50 years. The economy is broken.
Oh, wait, here's the thing right here. From November 2024, Alec Baldwin returned to SNL as RFK Jr. in the cold open, so they did make fun of him, I guess. What is this? Alec Baldwin, I mean, he's got some problems of his own, obviously. I mean, he always had problems, right? But is he still on trial? What happened with that whole thing? I don't watch the news. I don't know. I need to watch the news more, I suppose. And get this past this ad for Stitch Fix. You look for a shirt one time in your internet, you know, every video you watch is permanently doomed. Okay, there he is. Is this the sound not on?
Come on. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the press for joining us to document
So Dana Carvey.
Presidential transition.
I thought he was off the show. When did he? Wait.
Even though we disagree, I'm eager to sit down for a respectful conversation.
You playing Joe Biden?
Get a load of me. Instead of being rude and crazy like usual, I'm doing quiet and serene.
That's not Alec Baldwin playing Trump. He usually plays Trump. I don't know who's playing Trump.
I'm going to sit here and smile while ignoring the giant fire right behind me. Just like that meme. Can we put it up side by side? And this is fine.
It does look like that. We love This Is Fine, dog.
All right.
All right, that's enough. That's enough of that. I'm going to get to RFK as played by Alec Baldwin. Oh my God. Still talking. They're still talking. Okay, here you go. Is that okay? So I guess they're this is a sketch where it looks like it's one of these sketches that SNL always does where they just have a bunch of cameo appearances, or they just have a bunch of people walk by and say funny lines and then leave. It's
Hello, Mr. Trump. Thank you for having me, and yeah, thank you for seeing me. And might I say, giggity giggity.
Is that supposed to be Matt Gaetz?
I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to thank you for nominating me for Attorney General. I'm going to do a great job. If anyone tries to break the law, I'll tell them what I told my eyebrows. Freeze.
I think it was Frank Edward Nora on the Overnightscape recently unveiled an interesting piece of trivia that Matt Gaetz grew up in the house that was used as the house for Jim Carrey's character in The Truman Show down there in Seaside, Florida. Matt Gaetz is the real life Truman.
You've got another jacked king here to see you, RFK Jr.
Oh, here he comes. Okay. All right. Here we go. Good stuff. There he is. They're applauding a guy who shot somebody. Okay. I know it was an accident. I know. He still did shoot somebody.
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to tell you again, I'm so honored to be the head of the Health and Human Services Department. Americans need someone to teach them how to be healthy, someone like me, a 70-year-old man with movie star looks and a worm in his brain.
Bobby, I love you. I can't wait to see what you do with this country in terms of health and with regard to measles outbreak.
I care deeply about a woman's right to choose to give her child polio.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's enough of that. Okay. So they did make fun of him. Okay. So I guess we can still do comedy and make fun of people with worms in their brains. Okay. That's okay. I'm fine with that. I just, right. It's so crazy because, you always hear about just like how touchy our culture is now, but it's still okay to do that. So, all right. Yeah. I just, the thing with just Saturday Night Live is that every once in a while I'll catch a sketch. It'll come across YouTube. For years, they wouldn't release Saturday Night Live on YouTube. They'd always take it down because people would just put it up. And then I guess they realized that actually people watch YouTube, and it's a great place to show off short content like sketches. So they started embracing it, right? So they put it on there. So yeah, every once in a while I'll see a sketch on SNL, and I say like some of the modern ones are kind of funny. I mean, I'll never say that SNL cannot be funny, but when they do these, when they do impressions, especially, like when Alec Baldwin does RFK or whoever does Trump, it's just so, that they don't like these people that they're lampooning. And I think there's a very important part of doing impressions, maybe not so much satire in general. Like I think you can take something that you hate and be really funny with it, clearly, but just when you're actually having to wrap yourself in their skin and put on makeup that makes you look like them and do an impression of them, I think there needs to be something of, I don't know, what's the best word to use? I could say love. There needs to be some kind of maybe admiration or maybe some kind of embrace. It's almost like when an actor, plays a character, they have to find something, even if it's a really detestable character, something in that character to love, because the idea of like playing somebody who is a horrible person, right? And I'm not going to say like Donald Trump, but maybe so, sure, like Donald Trump, is that they don't believe that they're the bad guy. They see in themselves like good motives and interesting things and all that. And I think part of the actor, even if it's a comic actor just doing like a surface level satire, I think there needs to be something that comes from a level of sort of admiration. And I think that may be one of the reasons why I just don't find a lot of these like political impressions of late interesting, because they're lampooning such detestable people. And so it's just, there's a level of it that's just really, really not enjoyable and fun to watch. And you just see these people just seething with hatred, having to look like these characters, So that's what I think. I don't know. Anyway, So yeah, tonight is Friday night. Today I spent the entire afternoon in a movie theater. I saw The Brutalist. Yes, let's talk about this movie. This is a movie. Well, this is a 4-hour-long movie about a guy who builds a community center. That's kind of the best way I can say it. No, there's a little bit more to it, but yeah, it is essentially like he's building a community center for the whole movie. you know, those places where you go and I don't know, you play basketball and you lift some weights and run the track and things like that. Maybe take some swimming lessons, right? This is a movie that my friend Jason said he was going to go see today, and I was a little reluctant at first because it's like, you know, as I said on the last show, I last weekend went to the movies, not one, not two, but 3 times. That's something I haven't done, for at least 15 years or something. I used to go to the movies all the time. Like any movie that was out, I would go. It was just like a social thing to do. I'd go with my friends. And it was just also just a nice way to kill time. If you had a day where you didn't have anything to do, let's go to the movies, right? And so it's just something I haven't done in a very long time. I think number one, because streaming platforms and all that, they're there. You can stay home, you can watch a movie. And like you can find something to watch, right? If you want to kill some time, and you don't have to go and spend just like an exorbitant rate going to see a movie. You know, just other reasons I don't go to the theater, right? I just feel like they're staffed by people, and no offense to anybody who works there, because I'm sure you're doing a hell of a job, right? But just like when I go there, usually they're staffed by people who don't really seem to know like what is going on around them. It's just like when I went to go see a movie with my dad last week, the ticket that we got said that the movie was closed captioned, which meant that when we went in there were going to be, you know, words on the screen telling us what the actors were saying and telling us what sounds the plane was making and things like that. And I think that's great that they're making closed caption movies available for people in the theater after so long of not doing that. But this was not advertised when we bought our ticket. So, you know, we asked the girl, it's like, oh, this movie's closed captioned. And she's like, oh no, that was actually a mistake on your ticket. And she said like the 12 o'clock show is not closed caption. I said, okay, well that's good to know, but we're going to see the 2:30 show. And she's like, oh, well that shouldn't be closed captioned either. So, you know, we hated it, and we had to go in the movie theater and sit through like 25 minutes of like these awful trailers. Right. Not knowing whether or not it was closed caption. I asked my dad beforehand, if this movie has words on the screen, do you want to walk out? And he's like, I think we've come too far. I think we'll just have to deal with it, right? So the movie starts and it's not closed caption, but the point is, my point being, is just the girl had no idea, right? And she didn't take extra steps to find out and everything. And so it was a bit of a just like that, and just also, you know, there's a million things I can say about it. Just the experience is wholly unpleasant in general. But I will say, of all the 3 movies I went to see last week, they were all very pleasant experiences, right? We went to the new AMC theater that they had just revamped and revitalized with a brand new lobby that has a bar in it. And, you know, the carpet was moderately vacuumed. And so it was nice, right? This theater that at one point in the 90s was the hottest new theater in town, and was the first theater to have stadium seating. And it was called the Summit, right? It's up there at the Summit Shopping Center. And over years, it just declined, just like all suburban multiplexes do, and eventually became known as the Slummit, right? So it went from being very quickly, honestly, very quickly, to the newest theater in town to the oldest theater in town. So they opened it up just very recently. So, right, I really enjoyed it, although I will say my confidence level and just the sustainability of the amenable nature of a movie theater is very low. So we'll see where it is in like a year, but whatever. I mean, they're, you know, so anyway, so yeah, he asked me today to go see this movie, this Brutalist movie, 4-hour long movie. And I said, you know, it's a rainy day and I'm off, just had a busy week teaching. So yeah, let's go. So we went and saw it and sat down in that theater, and just for 4 hours, I did not get up. And I'm not saying that the movie was great or anything, but it was just like those new seats were very comfortable. Okay. So yeah. And I timed it right. I kind of timed it to where like I got to skip all the unpleasant parts of going to the movie theater. I think this is my new thing that I'm going to do, is just the movie starts, you know, when it says it starts, what it really means is that's when the trailers start. And I know that this is not any new news, just like the Shinyu dance troupe being a cult. But it, you know, it starts at 1:05, and I've clocked it. Almost any movie now has at least 25 to 30 minutes of trailers, including, you know, the annoying little AMC, now that you've sat here for 25 minutes of trailers and the movie's about to start, why don't you leave and go get a Coke? That ad. And then the Nicole Kidman ad. So all of that stuff included, all that really annoying stuff that you hate about going to the movies, is about 25 to 30 minutes long, right? So I timed it. I was out delivering food, and I took a delivery, and I sort of estimated the time, and I was like, this is going to be perfect, right? So I had 2 deliveries. I had to go to one hospital downtown, then I had to like pass the Summit and go to another hospital down 280. And then I turned around and I'm like looking at my clock, and I'm like, okay, so the movie started, it's like 1:15 now. The movie started 10 minutes ago. It's 7 minutes to the Summit. I'm there. So I parked, I got out, even with me running into a former student who works there, who I saw in the lobby, who was doing a hell of a job, by the way. Even with that, I walked into the theater right as that A24 logo was coming on. I came there right when the movie started. It was like just absolutely the most fantastic timing I've ever done. It should be in some kind of like a record book or some kind of a museum or whatever, of just how brilliantly I timed that. I've always been really good at that. I've always been really good at just gauging the time it takes to get from one place to another place, right? I'm absolutely excellent at it, to the point where I can walk in right when I'm expected to be there, right? So I'm not early to where it makes the host comfortable, and I'm not late to where it makes them feel like I'm disrespecting them or something. I'm there like right at the time, you know. But I don't know. The ironic thing is, though, I can't keep percussion. I can't keep a beat. Like, you know, whenever you have one of those songs on that requires you to like clap your hands in rhythm, I'm always off, and it's really embarrassing. So I never do that. I don't know what that is. But anyway, so yeah, we sit there, and this movie, The Brutalist, starts. Okay. So if you know about this movie, it's kind of a big movie this year, right? It's up for some Academy Awards, and it's up for Best Picture and things like that. And Birmingham is one of those towns where as soon as a movie gets nominated, those studios start to filter it, you know, into all the cities that don't really matter, where none of the Academy of voters are from, right? So the normies get to see it, right? The plebeians, okay, the groundlings, I suppose, if you will. So we finally got to see this movie, okay, and yeah, it's with Adrien Brody, okay. So Adrien Brody is an actor who is maybe not like a household name, I suppose, but he's a good actor. He's won an Oscar for that movie, the Pianist. When that movie came out, there was like a big controversy about how to say that name, but he plays the piano, and he escapes the Holocaust and comes to America, I believe, and makes lots of friends. And so, you know, it was directed by Roman Polanski, which was very controversial because obviously Roman Polanski is like a pariah in Hollywood, but nevertheless, he won the Oscar for directing The Pianist some 20 something years ago. So yeah, this movie is, again, Adrien Brody plays a Jewish person who is fleeing persecution after World War II. So he's from Budapest in Hungary. And he comes to America and takes up shop. His cousin has a furniture store in Philadelphia and sets him up there, and he kind of builds furniture. But it soon becomes apparent that he's not just a furniture builder, right? He's like this budding and back in his home country, very respected architect. And so this is a common story that the movie's trying to bring to light, that the movie is wanting to tell you, is of all of these wonderfully gifted artists and engineers who would have done amazing, great work if it wasn't for hate, if it wasn't for persecution, right? And so, yeah, he begins to show... he gets a commission to redesign a billionaire's library at his mansion there outside Philadelphia. And the billionaire then hires him to build a monument to his late mother, which he says will be a community center for all. Okay. So, yeah, I know that doesn't sound that doesn't sound like it would make up a 4-hour long movie. And I do agree. Like, I think movies are generally too long, and this movie is designed to not really feel, I suppose, like the typical 3.5-hour movie that would come out now. Like, all movies, you know, are like 3.5 hours, like those Marvel movies. And I mean, I saw that that Marvel Endgame movie. How long was that? Right. But yeah, these movies all feel like they have a lot of fat to them that can be trimmed. I think The Brutalist had a little bit of that, but I think all in all, it really did warrant its 4 hours. And maybe I'm being like a little bit hyperbolic. I think the movie was about 3.5 hours, right? So all in all, and it had an intermission in it. The intermission, very much by design, was again meant to make you feel like you were watching an old-fashioned VistaVision Hollywood epic, like from the 60s or something. So, but yeah, I don't like, without giving too much of the movie away, what really interested me in the movie, again, knowing nothing about it at all, was the title. And the brief knowledge that I knew that, Brutalist. Okay. So he's an architect. He's a brutalist architect. And I've always been interested in brutalist architecture, interested to the point where I'm not really going to spend my afternoon researching it and looking into it. Okay. But I heard the term brutalism years ago as a word that was used to define a style of building from the mid-century. And it was interesting because I was like, what an ugly name. Like, usually when you hear words linked with architecture, it's like Art Nouveau or Art Deco or Gothic or something like really that describes something really beautiful or tragic or, modern or whatever. And brutalist just sounded so pejorative and all that. And that sure enough is sort of like by design, right? Brutalism architecture was never really embraced by mainstream, I think, architecture, even though it was very much a mainstay of mid-century architecture until about the 1970s. And in short, it describes very like buildings that put practical function over aesthetic beauty. I think is like the best way you can describe that. And as I said, growing up in Birmingham and just having these memories of driving around downtown, going to my dad's office, and also going to these, places like like on field trips here in the city, like the Birmingham Children's Theater, which is at the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center, and like the Birmingham Zoo and places like that. These are places that are done in that brutalist style. They're not beautiful to look at all, but they have like this function. They very often are just like these concrete, exposed concrete, glass and brick, essentially, right? And it very much is like just the look of the 70s. And so that's what I was curious in when I was driving down. I don't think I'm putting too much interpretation into my childhood, but I really do believe that when I was driving around and noticing this kind of minimalist, low aesthetic architecture, I was very much seeing a world that had existed before me, if that makes any sense. I was like not seeing a world that I was living in. I was seeing a world that it was like dawning on me that this is a world that has always been going on, and people have been in these buildings before me and before I was born. And so I think that's what really appealed to me. And I was also sort of thinking about like, man, people in the past really didn't have that much taste. I was probably not thinking that, but it's just this style that did intrigue me. And so when I heard that there was this movie about this guy who is a brutalist architect who comes to America like in the early 1950s, and I'm sort of like, okay, I'm in. That may not sound interesting to a lot of people, but that does like pinch a nerve a little bit with me. So, and when the movie starts, it's just automatically like this movie's down my alley, right? Because the movie starts with him coming to New York on the ship, like in the early parts of The Godfather Part 2, arriving in New York at Ellis Island, seeing the Statue of Liberty, and then getting on a train, and there's just this wonderful, epic sounding music score. Just this like boom, 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 you know, like, and it's kind of matching the train and all that. And I think the train is actually a part of the musical score. Right. And then he comes to Philadelphia, and it cuts to like newsreel footage. And I love movies with newsreel footage because they just, especially like retro, you know, movies that take place in the past that use retro news footage. And it just builds context. It sets the scene, and it says like, this is Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And it's talking all about steel, and just, this is like the comeback of America. This is it's like America is now getting to work and getting to business after the horrors of World War II. And after the country just becomes so stabilized for so long. And here this guy is on a train, and he's there, and he's an immigrant, and this is like the experience of immigrants. This is like them seeing the country with fresh eyes and being able to build it in a way that helps them assimilate to their new country, but also helps them honor their new country with the way that they're building things. And so I'm all about that. That's a fascinating idea to me. Right. So yeah, the movie goes on, and it is it's not totally about him just right building this community center. It's about obviously like a lot more things. Like, he's a very troubled guy. He's got like this heroin addiction that he formed because of like this. He broke his nose when he was running away from the Nazis. He jumped off a train and I think ran into a tree. I think that's the backstory. And so he's dealing with that. His wife and his niece are also still in Budapest. So he takes this job with this billionaire partly to become an architect again, but also to raise funds and use the billionaire's legal contacts to bring his niece and his wife back to America. Or to America, I suppose. So, and then they get there, and all is not what it seems, and with their relationship. So it is a movie that just explores, I think, very heavily the idea that like, just because they're in America doesn't mean they're safe. You know, they've still got that trauma to deal with and things like that. So, yeah, but the most intriguing thing, obviously, about the movie was the fact that he does, build this community center in this brutalist style. And it is the brutalist style that is very much a metaphor. And obviously the building is a metaphor for, I suppose, the immigrant experience in America. Because the idea of brutalism is not an American idea. It comes from Europe. It's very much a British idea, and it's a Russian idea, and it's very much a response to to capitalism. There's a scene in the movie where Guy Pearce, the billionaire, is consulting with another architect who's American, and the American architect wants to bring in marble. And I think I may have been wrong, but I think he says I think I heard him say he wants to bring in marble down from Talladega, which is in Alabama. And Alabama is like a marble gold mine, but Adrian Brody says, no, we're going to use concrete. It's cheap and it's efficient, right? So, the idea of building these buildings without aesthetic in mind is sort of like building something that serves all people, that doesn't celebrate class, that doesn't celebrate like its ornateness, which is, like very much what Adrian Brody's character Laszlo is all about, right? Or why he came here. So he's very much Soviet in that regard. And the idea that the billionaire, and we can call him Harrison, he's played by the actor Guy Pearce, who hasn't been in a movie that I've seen in a very long time, but I always remember him as, from the movie LA Confidential back in the 90s. He was great in that. But yeah, Guy Pearce plays this billionaire who hires him. And the fact that he wants to build a community center is intriguing because that's mainly what brutalist architecture was used in, which was the building of places that were for the community. You know, these public places. As I said, here in Birmingham, like we think of like, when I think of brutalism, I think of like the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center complex, which I talked about, where the Shinyu cult dance troupe performs. It was very much done in a brutalist style, right? As well as places like the Birmingham Zoo, which was constructed back in the 60s, and that brutalist, a lot of the buildings are very much look like that. And there are these places that are just designed simply to not cast aspersions on any one class, to welcome all people in. And so, yeah, Harrison, the billionaire, wants to build this place in honor of his mother, who had died before the movie starts. And obviously they can't just build this thing in a vacuum. They have to get permits, and they have to go to the city council and all that to get this, and all these community organizations and groups start weighing in. And what they want early on is they want the building to have some kind of religious aesthetic to it, like a Christian aesthetic. So he begrudges this, but goes on. He says, like, my only ideology. Of course, they don't like him very much because he's a Jew. He's a Jew, you know, building a Christian look to their building. And he just says, my only ideology is my architecture. That's like, I'm not going to bring my Jewishness to this. If you want a cross, I'll build a cross. But as the project goes on, he starts to get a lot more troubled by it, especially when his wife finally weighs in on it. So, you know, and again, as I said, the building is like a metaphor for the immigrant experience. The fact that, like, you can, you know, you're here now, you build what we tell you to build. You act the way we tell you to act. You know, that was Hungary was yesterday, America is today. You be here and you play by our rules, right? So that's the movie that's the story I think that the movie is telling, and it tells it quite well. And and it was interesting having an intermission. The only other time I've ever seen a movie with an intermission was in the Quentin Tarantino movie Hateful Eight that came out. That was the first movie I saw after I got married. So I remember coming home from our honeymoon. My wife and I went to London, and we touched down in London on like a Friday, and I think on a Saturday night I went to the movies and saw the Hateful Eight, and there was an intermission during that. And so, yeah, there was an intermission. It was kind of cool just to have that thing where I'm sitting there next to Jason, and we're able to talk about the movie, and to sort of discuss what we liked, what we didn't like. And both of us, just going into that intermission, were like, we love this movie. This is so good. Just the drama, right? And just the music. And we were able to talk about that. These things that you normally would talk about with somebody after the movie's over, right? Or when you're at somebody's house and you're watching a movie for the first time, you can pause it and all that stuff. But it was cool just being able to sit in the theater for 15 minutes and have that ticking clock on the screen telling you how much longer you had. That was cool. And just and be able to talk about the movie and also throw theories out about, like, okay, so what's going to happen here? There's these two guys don't really seem to like each other very much. Do you think that's going to create a lot of drama later on? Right. So, yeah, but yeah, Jason had an interesting take. He said that the movie reminded him a lot of these like Miramax epics, you know, like the film company Miramax, which these film epics that would come out in the 90s, you know, movies like The English Patient, or maybe a little later Cold Mountain or whatever, right? And I said, yeah, I can see that. And I told him, like, I feel like it's more trying to, like, be like, especially with the big VistaVision logo coming up before the movie, in the intermission also, I think it's supposed to remind us of like a Lawrence of Arabia or like a Dr. Zhivago, you know, these big epics from the 1960s that you see and all that. So we were both talking about what the film reminded us of, almost more than we were talking about the film itself, which, I don't know, sometimes that can be kind of a problem. Maybe that means that you're watching the film too much rather than getting involved in the story. But I don't know. So yeah, like I said to Jason, it's interesting that you said, you know, Miramax, because when Miramax obviously was a company that fell under hard times. Well, they merged with Disney, and then Disney dropped them, and then the creators Harvey Weinstein and Bob Weinstein went on to found the Weinstein Company, which then fell on hard times. Obviously, with Harvey Weinstein was sent to prison for just being a lifelong creep and a pervert and all that. And but the film company that released The Brutalist is A24, and I very much think that like A24 is like the Miramax of the modern day. Just this film company that I'm not going to say like snooty or anything, but they definitely release movies for film people. I guess that's the best way I can put it. They release these movies where they take big chances and give young directors a lot of money to make movies that are very artistic in nature and perhaps maybe reach a mainstream audience, right? So they've had some success with that. But yeah, it's like when you see that A24 logo coming on the screen, you know that this is going to be an artsy movie. So I said to Jason, it's, the first half of this movie did feel kind of conventional and did feel like a very conventional epic, almost like, The English Patient or something like that. So maybe they'll keep that tone. Well, the second half, it started. The second half of that movie is very much an A24 movie. And if you know what I'm talking about, then right? Just characters doing very bizarre things and really dark twists in the story. And ultimately just a very abrupt ending. It's so crazy. As I said, the movie is more than 3.5 hours long. Okay. And somehow ends really abruptly in a way that you don't expect. So that's what I'll say about The Brutalist. I'll definitely say check it out if you like a weird time. I think it's a good movie. I would give it. I go on the Roger Ebert 4.5 rating system. I would give it like a 3.5 star rating. I think. So, yeah, just going into the movie, not knowing anything about it. That's my like preferred way, right? To see a film. I think I just don't want to know anything. And, that's why I used to be, I think when I first started getting into films, like when I was in high school, I was really into the Academy Awards that come on every year because they told me, because I didn't know, what movies were supposed to be good, right? And then found out as I got a little older that maybe it's not about the films that are, supposed to be good. It's the films that the studios paid people a lot of money to review very well, I think. And I'm not saying like I'm not talking about the film critics. I'm just talking about the actual people who vote for the Oscars, because I mean the Academy Awards was founded like by design to get people to go to the movies, right? Back in the 1920s, it was an industry that was floundering a little bit, and said like we need to do something to spice things up, to tell mainstream America, right, what are the good movies in town. So they just invented the ceremony, and ever since then it's been pretty much more of the same, right? And yeah, there was, a scandal. I don't know if it was a scandal. Maybe it's like just Hollywood as usual back in the 90s, again, with that guy, that creep, Harvey Weinstein, essentially buying Academy of voters, off by, giving them incentives to vote for Shakespeare in Love for Best Picture, right? And this is very well known. It was very well documented, especially in that book by Peter Biskind, called Down and Dirty Pictures, about independent filmmaking in the 90s. I think it was also covered in that book about DreamWorks as well, right? Because, yeah, like Shakespeare in Love won in like 1998, and then I think in 1999, the very next year, American Beauty won, which was a DreamWorks movie. That had a creep in it too, right? Kevin Spacey. Right. I don't think he was as much of a creep, but I think he was still a creep. I don't know. But yeah, like American Beauty won the Oscar, right? And DreamWorks, like a DreamWorks executive, basically admitted in an interview, she said, "I just stole Weinstein's playbook. I paid everybody." Right. So it's just these Oscars, you know, they whatever. They don't matter, I guess. But you know, I guess I did fall into it, you know, this year a little bit because The Brutalist did come out and it was like, but I don't know. I mean, just the movie, the storyline sucked me in. So yeah, I saw it and I was just going in not knowing anything about it. When I came out of it, I obviously looked up everything about it, right? And I wanted to know who made the movie because, like, who would make this kind of movie? And it's a movie that seems like it took, like, a lot of research and a lot of knowledge about, you know, the Hungarian experience and brutalist architecture and everything. And it just seemed like a very smart person was behind making this movie. But at the same time, it also had some very clumsy things in it, right? Okay, I don't know. Without giving too much, I've already told you, like, the building that he's building is a metaphor, you know, for the immigrant experience. And that in itself is a little bit clunky, I think, right? To have just an object that is the center of attention in the movie be, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that works. I don't know how you could do it any other way, but yeah, like at the beginning of the movie, as I said, when Adrian Brody is going through the corridors of the ship and he finally emerges and it's all sunlight and he sees the Statue of Liberty, right? So, you know, like in The Godfather Part 2, when Vito Corleone is on the boat, he's arriving and he sees the Statue of Liberty, right? It's just right there off of the side of the boat. And it's the Statue of Liberty is kind of far away. It's in the distance, but it's getting closer. And we know exactly what that sort of means. That's a pretty good, you know, metaphor, I suppose. Like the Statue of Liberty is already a symbol, but, you know, right there. And then we kind of see him, you know, getting closer to that America that he wants, that he craves, right? In The Brutalist, the Statue of Liberty is also used as a symbol. I mean, it always has to be, but as a metaphor also. So like the camera comes up, it follows Adrian Brody up out of that ship into the sun. And then that camera is like handheld and it's sort of circling the Statue of Liberty. And it never seems to really get the Statue of Liberty either fully in frame or fully upright on the screen, like standing right there in the middle of the screen, standing straight up. The Statue of Liberty is always a little off kilter. And just like from that moment, that was kind of like just a bit of a red flag for me, because that's a very obvious thing to do, to sort of show the Statue of Liberty like off kilter and floating around and you know, juxtapose that with shots of Adrian Brody looking at it. And you just sort of know that this is not going to be a pleasant trip. Like this is like he's arriving here, but the American dream is never, ever going to be righted in his sights. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm being too hard on it, because I don't think you can show the Statue of Liberty in a way that's not a very strong and obvious metaphor. But it also seems to be something that has been done in so many movies in the past. Like, could you show it some other way of him just arriving and things aren't like, maybe he just lands on Ellis Island and somebody steals his luggage or whatever. And he's like, well, this is not going to be a fun trip, I see. You know, I don't know. Just do something else to foreshadow that the next 4 hours of the movie or whatever. I don't know, but you know, so I looked up who made this movie, and it's this guy named Brady Corbett. And I don't like to profile people based on what they look like, clearly, but this guy, Brady Corbett, just looks very, you know, I went to film school and watched a lot of movies. Now I made a movie, and he's got like this beanie on and just unshaven face and just, I don't know. And just looks very intense. Like he's just looking very intensely at you, right? And all that. And I looked this guy up. I just thought this movie was this is a movie you expect to see made by like just some big, strong international filmmaker who you never heard of. And this guy's from Scottsdale, Arizona. And he was a child actor. He was in the movie Funny Games and this movie 13. And he looks like, I found like an image on him on his Wikipedia page, and he's just this young kid who's just sort of like looking at the camera like he's modeling the new spring trouser line from Pennies or something. I don't know. And this is the guy who grew up to make The Brutalist. It's just, I can't square it in my mind. It doesn't seem like it computes very well, that, right? So I don't know. And there's this other thing also about a movie like The Brutalist, which seems to just be made from an insider's perspective, right? To be made from somebody who really understands what like just ancestrally, almost like by DNA, just has this link to their ancestors and their heritage and all that. And yeah, this guy is not Jewish. He's very waspy. I mean, he's honestly, it's like more waspy than the Guy Pearce character who hires Adrian Brody in the movie. So it's very strange. I looked it up. He's got like this interview where he's like, yeah, I have very, very distant Jewish ancestry, which is almost like saying none at all. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to how else to read that. Right. So, it's just interesting because, and I wouldn't really be saying this much. Generally, I just think that art is art. If you have a story in you and you want to tell it, then tell it. But, with so much going on in the past few years, about who gets to tell stories, who has the right to tell certain stories. Like, why aren't they coming down on this guy? It's one of those things where it's like, I'm almost relieved when a movie doesn't come out. Well, I am very relieved when a movie comes out and doesn't get any controversy. Like, every movie that comes out now has to have some kind of backlash. That's almost like part of the promotional machine behind it, right? But somehow there's like no conversation about like why this former child actor from Scottsdale, Arizona, made a movie about a Hungarian Jew. It's kind of interesting to me, but it may be because this movie's being dwarfed by another controversy, and it seems as if the filmmakers used AI to tweak the Hungarian accents of Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones, the two main leads in the movie. And so this has gotten just a huge, a lot of press coverage recently about it. And this director has said, like, we built an AI program, but we manually used it. So I don't know what that means. Like, I mean, yeah, everybody manually uses AI, right? We hit a prompt in, but so I don't know what he has to say about that, right? And I was talking to my wife about this. My wife is an actress who does frequent voiceover work, and she was totally behind this guy making the movie that he wanted to make. But when I told her about the AI thing, that struck a nerve, because then why shouldn't it, right? It's just this thing that actors give performances, and obviously their performances are somewhat tweaked in a movie. They shoot multiple takes, and maybe a little bit here is used here and a little bit is used there, but to actually, tamper with their voice performance and, messing up the dialect that they had worked with a coach to perfect, that's a little messed up and a little bit beyond the pale, it seems, right? So anyway, I don't know, it's fascinating. I would say that if you're paying attention to the Oscars, those things matter to you at all. It'll be interesting to watch to see if it gets all this recognition, or if it fall short because of this backlash. But then again, like a lot of movies that are at the Oscars this year have backlash, right? With that. Let's see, like, what movies are nominated this year. I just typed Google into Google. Hang on. Oscar nominations. Let's see what's nominated. Yeah, this Emilia Perez movie, which is out. I haven't seen it yet. Apparently it's been on Netflix for months. I just heard about it a couple weeks ago. But yeah, there's a controversy right now about, like, the wrong person made that movie. Like, you're a non-trans person. You don't get to make a movie about trans people, right? So that's the controversy that movie has going, right? A Complete Unknown, which I saw. I really liked that movie. That does not have any controversy because that is the most traditional, conventional, middle of the road, offends nobody movie, right? I mean, it may offend a community who still is upset about Bob Dylan playing the electric guitar at the Newport Folk Festival in 1965, but it didn't bother anybody. Yeah, there's this movie called Conclave. I haven't seen that yet. I think that's about priests or something. Nickel Boys, I'm Still Here. I don't know what that is. The Substance, I saw that movie. That deserves its own talk, but I won't talk about it now. Dune Part 2, okay. Wicked, and Anora. So I don't know the various controversies those movies have going with them, but so it's basically just going to be like, who is the least offensive this year? So it'll probably be that Bob Dylan movie, I think, right? Yeah, so, but I came home tonight and sat down with Jessica, and Jessica and I talked about The Brutalist, and I told her all about it, all my thoughts, pretty much everything I just told you. And after a while, she got tired of hearing me talk about The Brutalist, so I came in here and started recording. So I hope you are still with me right now. But yeah. But I didn't just come in here immediately. We sat down and put on Netflix and watched what I still believe all these months after I first saw it is my favorite movie of last year, which was Saturday Night. Yeah, this is a movie about the first episode ever of Saturday Night Live. Right, so a show, as I said, I haven't watched in years. I think there was maybe only 1 year in my entire life where I actually looked forward to watching that show, really. And that may have been sometime in middle school or whatever. I don't know. But it's never been a show that I've watched, but I've also been very deeply fascinated by it. When that huge Saturday Night Live book came out in the early 2000s, I bought it. Because it just had all of these. I'm not really fascinated by what goes on when the show is on. I'm interested in what goes on behind the scenes, right? Because just from the first time I ever heard the story about Chevy Chase and John Belushi and Bill Murray getting into a gigantic row, I just was interested because these are the people you grew up with before the internet was around. And you always just thought of them as just like infallible characters. And Saturday Night Live is the thing that they all have in common, where they all came and just like showed their worst colors. So I am intrigued by that, but I also just have always loved that Mickey Rooney idea of like putting on a show. Like here, there's a lot less moving parts to this show than there are Saturday Night Live, but. Yeah, when this movie was announced, I was really excited to see it. Jason Reitman, who's the son of the director of Ghostbusters, Ivan Reitman, directed it. And as like my friend Dave was supposed to go onto the set when they were shooting in Atlanta, because he's friends with a guy from high school who's apparently really good friends with Jason Reitman. So he was supposed to go, but he couldn't do it. But yeah, this movie Saturday Night that came out, I think it came out in October, just completely bombed at the box office. Yeah, we were not expecting this movie to be nominated for any Academy Awards, even though I think it's like better than any movie I just named, honestly. Right? Just in terms of sheer entertainment value and just sheer just pleasure that you get from watching the people in this movie play these iconic comedians that I suppose maybe I was the last generation to really grow up being aware of them. I don't think, I mean, it's like if you told a kid now who Dan Aykroyd is and what the Bassomatic is, they would have no idea what you're talking about, right? I think like maybe Chevy Chase, because Chevy Chase is in Christmas Vacation, which I'm sure like bored Gen Z kids have to watch every Christmas with their parents. But, you know, it's just a movie that just completely like where the first time I saw it, and I did see it in the theater, I just got sucked into it. And it's the cast of Saturday Night Live are like complete unknowns, you know, and just played by unknown actors, which obviously is smart because you don't want like an actor that you know playing another actor that you really do know. I know that happens sometimes, but it's different with Saturday Night Live, right? I can't really explain that very well, I suppose. But, you know, like, for instance, you know, Bill Hader, who was on Saturday Night Live, has often been compared to Dan Aykroyd. Like, he's the latter day Dan Aykroyd. So it'd be weird to see Bill Hader, you know, who had been on Saturday Night Live playing an older Saturday Night Live cast member. So, you know, that's the best I can explain it. But yeah, you don't really care about the fact that you're not trying to, it's good because in a lot of movies you're trying to place actors like, who are these people? You go in just knowing they're complete unknowns, okay? No pun intended to that Bob Dylan movie. And it just allows you to get sucked into the story, right? And just watching this film is fascinating because it really does, it does romanticize, I think, like, Saturday Night Live, but I like as being just this bastion, this like iconic comedy franchise that's lasted now for 50 years, right? I think this year is its 50th anniversary. So and that's obviously very deserved, right? That's very worthy, because reading that Saturday Night book and knowing a little bit about the history, you know that show was almost taken off the air many times. I think it's been pretty safe since the 90s. But in the 80s, it was very touch and go there for a while. So the fact that the show has survived this long, I think it just deserves to have this kind of movie be made about it that does romanticize it and does lionize it, but also really does, I think, show you the nuts and bolts and how fragile a show like that was, and how iconoclastic it was right at the time that it premiered there in October of 1975. So yeah, like the movie follows Lorne Michaels, who's played by this kid I've never seen before. Jason was telling me he was in this movie, The Fabelmans, that the movie about Steven Spielberg. So he played Steven Spielberg and now he's playing Lorne Michaels. Okay. And he's running around backstage just trying to get all the little parts in order. And his writing partner and his wife, Rosie Schuster, is there with them. And they're teaming each other, just trying to get like John Belushi to sign his contract. And they're trying to get the network president, you know, played by Willem Dafoe, like off their back. Right. And they've also got this partner, Dick Ebersol, who was the NBC executive in charge of sports, I believe, who was, in a way, I suppose, like Lorne Michaels' mentor, even though they were around the same age. But yeah, I talk about like not knowing actors. I did not know who the guy playing Dick Ebersol was until he did like this certain gesture with like his hands, right, pointing toward it, and I was like, I know that actor. What, I've seen him. And I was suddenly like, oh my God, no, that's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, right? That's the son of the actor Philip Seymour Hoffman. He did the exact same, he has the exact same mannerism. So it's weird in a movie where you see a bunch of actors that you don't know playing actors that you do know. Here's an actor that was playing somebody who was not in the show Saturday Night Live, but somebody behind the scenes who I did know. So that was weird. Right. But, yeah, it's just Lorne Michaels and Rosie Schuster and Dick Ebersol running around behind the scenes and running into all the different cast members. And you see like Chevy Chase and Andy Kaufman, of course, was there, you know, and in character, right, doing the Mighty Mouse song. And then you got, you know, Billy Crystal, who was not on the first show. He's there, and he's his whole storyline is cut to several times. He's trying to trim down his sketch that he's doing from like 6 minutes to 2 minutes, right? And yeah, George Carlin, of course, who was like the host of that first Saturday Night Live. So it's one of those movies. It's like a great movie for people that like know a lot about Saturday Night Live, but I think also just maybe totally confusing to people who don't know anything about it. And I think that's the reason why the movie bombed, is because it does rely on a certain level of historical knowledge of what I think a lot of people perceive to be this very trivial thing ultimately, which is like this sketch comedy show that is on television in 2025. And when most people are watching people do, you know, bits on TikTok and all that. And if they see anything at all of Saturday Night Live, they see it on YouTube. Okay. So it's like such a foreign concept to, I think, a lot of people. And yeah, this movie very quickly came and went. It was like in theaters for 1 week, and now it's on Netflix. And, you know, it surprised me tonight when I saw it on Netflix, because Netflix is very often like a platform that gives a second chance to movies that bombed at the box office, right? There was this, I think it's actually has a name. It's called like the Molly's Game effect. There's this movie that came out called Molly's Game that nobody saw. Then it was on Netflix, and it just like was #1 for weeks. And so I was thinking, okay, it's good. It's coming to Netflix. People are going to see it. They're going to talk about it and all that. And it's like been on there for like a week, and it's #8. It's in the top 10, but it's like #8. Like, what? This movie can't catch a break. It's so sad because it is a very good movie, right? And I think just the title confuses people. Like, okay, so what's it taking place on Saturday night? Like, what's this movie about? You know, and like the poster is done in like one of those classic 70s, like Mad Magazine styles. So it just seems to be a movie that's like it does not fit, I think, conventionally into what people are expecting now when they go to the movies. Or it's about subject matter that they really don't care about. Like, who cares? I don't want to know about the first episode of Saturday Night, but I don't know. It was wild. But yeah, I think that was probably my favorite movie of last year. Like, I've seen it 3 times now. Yeah, I watched it in the movies. I saw it when it was released digitally. I watched it, like Jason brought it over. I watched it with him and Dave. And yeah, tonight with Jessica. And Jessica liked it. Jessica liked it a lot. So yeah. But yeah, we were like, you know, that's probably not going to get nominated for like, you know, any Oscars or anything. But, you know, the wild thing is that, okay, so I was wrong. So there's a new Oscar category for casting. You know, the casting director who, you know, brings everybody together, obviously, you know, works with the director and like, who do you want for this role? And they reach out to agents and things like that. But they're finally giving this award, which I think is like a smart idea. Again, I don't care about the Oscars, but I think that's a smart idea, because that is an art, right? To get people to be in your movie. Okay. Yeah, I think if so, they're going to give that out for the first time next year. I think if they gave it out this year, right, that movie would have gotten a nomination for casting, because it is a brilliant cast. The way that these people are assembled, the way that they got just all these non-actors, or not really non-actors, but not known actors. I mean, they're very good, but you know, you don't know who they are. And yeah, like after the movie tonight, my wife was looking up some of them on like to see what else they've been in. So it's like, I suppose, like, I don't know who he is, but the most popular one, actor who was playing one of the Saturday Night Live cast members was the actor playing Dan Aykroyd. And this guy, this was Dylan O'Brien is the kid's name. But yeah, Dylan O'Brien was like in the Maze Runner movies, I think. And he had been also on an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which which I had to remember which one it was. And yeah, there's an episode in like the second to the last season where Larry David is looking for a young actor to cast in this sitcom he's making called Young Larry about his like young life growing up in Brooklyn. And he goes to Netflix, and Netflix is trying to push Dylan O'Brien on him. It's like, this kid's been in the Maze Runner movies. He's been in a lot of, he's a very hot actor right now. So go and see him. So I had seen that actor before. I just didn't know what. And then the guy playing Chevy Chase, who does just about the best, like, it's hard to do this. It's not like Saturday Night Live lampooning, where you're just like doing gestures and capturing mannerisms. You know, you actually gotta, you know, figure out the personality of these people on a much deeper level, right? And I think the guy playing Chevy Chase just does that brilliantly, right? Because, you know, Chevy Chase, I think, is like, you know, by far the most talked about, like just ongoing, the most talked about cast member of Saturday Night Live that there's ever been, just because of all of everybody always seems to come out of the woodwork with a new story about how much of an asshole he was. Right. And so that's what we all know about Chevy Chase, is that he's like, just he plays such a bumbling fool on screen so many times, but behind the scenes, he's just like an insecure, petty little diva. Right. And so, yeah, and Saturday Night, the actor, I think, just like brilliantly, you know, captures that, where he is charismatic, but he's also just incredibly insecure, and has the head of the network at one point telling him he's the next Johnny Carson. And the next moment in the movie, there's a scene where Milton Berle is hitting on his girlfriend, on Chevy Chase's girlfriend, and Chevy Chase gets offended, and Milton Berle, you know, does what Milton Berle's been known to do. You know, it's just like he pulls out his penis, right, which is supposed to be very long and girthy, okay, and cuts Chevy Chase down to size and tells him, like, you'll never be as big as me. You know, and you just see like this kind of like you know, this little ego shatter in Chevy Chase. And Chevy Chase obviously rebounds by just being a bigger asshole. Okay. And, yeah, so this guy playing Chevy Chase is, this actor, Corey Michael Smith, who I've seen in a couple of movies before, also been on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but, he was really good in this movie that came out last year that I thought was going to get a lot more attention at the Oscars. Again, I don't care about the Oscars, but this is a movie called May December with, Natalie Portman and, Julianne Moore. So he was really good in that. And one actor in the movie that Jessica looked up who played Michael O'Donoghue. Right, Michael O'Donoghue. This guy, let me look him up. This was a surprise. This is the biggest surprise of the night. So Michael O'Donoghue, if you don't know, was he was I guess the head writer of the original Saturday Night, you know, Live, and plays a very big role in the movie, and he's just the iconoclastic, you know, sort of nymphomaniac writer. You know, like Lorne Michaels is very level-headed, and Michael O'Donoghue is his partner, who's very erratic and is always fighting with standards and practices and lighting pages and throwing them out the window and things like that. And getting in fights with George Carlin and stuff like that. This guy who plays Michael O'Donoghue in Saturday Night, the actor's name is Tommy Dewey, who I don't know who this is, and I've never seen anything that he's been in. The Mindy Project, Casual, The Front Runner, but he's from Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, so there you go. So yeah, he was at Mountain Brook High School, and he was a couple years ahead of a friend of my wife's there at Mountain Brook. So yeah, he's from here, and that was a big surprise. So, you know, good job, I suppose, for him being in being in Saturday night. So, anyway, well, I got my first stock tip the other day, and showed you, if you've seen the vlog, maybe you've seen it already. So somebody at the cigar store the other day told me to invest in this company. Said there's this Chinese company that makes education products for nonprofit universities. It's like I should have been clued in by the word Chinese. Hey, listen, I'm not saying they just turn out cults or whatever, but it's like it's probably not. I mean, America's not really doing good business with China right now, are they? So, but yeah, he said you should get in on it. Listen, it costs you about as much as a 6-pack of beer. So yeah, I bought a couple of shares in it, and everything was going perfectly fine until yesterday. You know, it was trading fine, and the price was actually going up, and then it went down to like 16 cents a share. You know, well, anyway, but it closed. It looks like it actually closed yesterday. It's at 20 cents now. All right, 20 cents. Okay, I'm making that money. I'm gonna retire. Okay. All right. Well, next time you hear from me, I'll be on a beach somewhere. All right. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight on the Midnight Citizen Show. I want to remind you, you can find me over at mikesbonfire.substack.com. And also over there at youtube.com/ the _Midnight Citizen podcast. I'll put all that in the show notes. You could also find me over at the Overnight Scape Underground on SUG, onsug.com. And I'll be over there as well. Thank you so much for listening tonight. Keep your eyes open.